back to luck and I should wonder, for I spend all me brass in the bottom of a glass. Now across the western plains I must wander, and it's all for me grog, me jolly, jolly grog, and it's all for me beer and tobacco. Well, I spent all me tin in a shanty drinking gin, across the western plains I must wander.
Folk music and folklore survive and function in the 80s, but there's a growing awareness that they're in danger of being swamped by the homogeneous superculture of the mass media. Some educators who recognise this danger are now looking towards the study of folk life as a rich source of living history. The yarns, games, dances, songs, poems, rituals, sayings and crafts of our folklore can tell us much about where we came from and where we are going. One teacher who has begun teaching folklore is Finley High School teacher John Marshall. I asked John what aspects of folklore his students had been studying.
The students who've just finished Year 12 did a storyteller, and what they did was they looked at the stories that he told and analysed them in terms of what they had, I hope, learned about folk tales. So they were able to put them in the sorts of categories and give them some tale types and do a very small motif analysis of that, so that they could see that in fact the sorts of things that are found in the local area are the very same sorts of things, perhaps with just a slightly different form, slightly different type, that exist in the rest of the world. That's the purpose for studying folklore, is to see how similar we are, not to see how different we are.
Have you found it difficult in terms of television now having replaced a lot of what used to pass for folklore, getting students to relate to folklore as a living thing?
No, I haven't. I think that the students that I've been dealing with are happy to learn that they are part of folklore and that folklore is part of them. It's reassuring to know that they're a link in a chain, that this chain goes back a long way and it's part of tradition. It really helps students today to feel that they have a platform, something underneath them, something behind them. It takes away some of those insecurities that perhaps they might otherwise feel.
I also spoke to 3 of John's Year 11 students who attended the conference to give papers on their projects. What was your particular project?
For my project, I did folk crafts in the Berrigan region, and I centred mainly on Joan Daly, who's a spinner and weaver, and she just told me all about what she does and where she learned it from, how she learnt it, and she showed me all the things she made, and that's all.
I did wrote about yarns, which my grandfather had told me, which were very interesting. One was about him and his brother training a goat not to bunt them and that. The second was about Tokamall, the blowhole and its connection with the Murray River. This is supposed to be an underground stream and that. And that was really about it, and just all these expressions and things he uses. It helps you understand more things when someone you know is sort of telling them to you, and in story ways, than just reading it sort of thing.
Well, I did children's folklore at a local school in Berrigan, and I used to go to the school so I could relate to what they were doing and that. So, they were doing their main folklore, I reckon, was the cubby houses and just the rhymes and jokes and the hand clapping games that they play and say, just the games they play in their field and area around the school.
Folklore studies are also being introduced at the tertiary education level. Courses in children's folklore, for example, are particularly relevant to student teachers. Gwenda Davey, a folklorist and senior lecturer from the Footscray Institute of Technology in Victoria, has been instrumental in introducing and developing such courses at her college. Courses in folklore studies started at Footscray Institute of Technology in 1985, and a lot of student teachers have been going along to the courses. How have they used these studies in their practice teaching?
Well, in quite a number of different ways, Penny. We've made a lot of use of games, for example, children's games, both as a various type of curriculum activities, for instance. I mean, obviously games could be used for physical education for a start, but we've done quite a lot of work on the cross-cultural study of games. For instance, they've learnt actually so much that they can teach some Vietnamese games. They've learnt some Aboriginal string games, some Turkish children's games, as well as a lot of the traditional ones that they're being encouraged to use that they remember. We used one project that we did, for instance, we called Games Our Parents Played, in which they all interviewed their parents about the games that they played when they were children. Apart from children's games too, we've done quite a bit of work on nursery rhymes. We've been collecting them in a number of different languages because there's no doubt about it that people of every nationality do use nursery rhymes with their kids. And the way that the students have been able to use these is in a number of different ways. For instance, in making books. One of the things that primary teachers do a lot is in the making of homemade books, and it's found that sometimes by writing the nursery rhymes in these books so that kids can read them, and given that they know the rhyme already or have learnt it orally, this gives them a lot of confidence in reading, to help them to believe that yes, they really can read even when they think they didn't. So in that area of pre-reading, nursery rhymes have had quite a lot of use. We've also found, of course, by being able to make the cultural comparisons, has been able to give a lot of lessons that children can make about the similarities between different cultural groups. Sometimes multicultural programs put too much emphasis on how different cultures are. That Greeks do this and Italians do that, and they eat different food and they have different customs. And I mean, it's quite often presented in a positive way as though, isn't this interesting and exotic? But nevertheless, it does make the point that people are different. But once you start studying things like nursery rhymes and games, you realise how tremendously similar people are. And I think this is perhaps an even more important point to make in our multicultural society.
Can you describe briefly how you've gone about setting up an academic study in something that's as basically unacademic as folklore or folk life?
Well, of course, we've had to draw a lot on overseas experience. In Finland, every student who does an arts course has to do at least 1 year of Finnish folk culture, and given that most arts graduates, just like arts graduates here, do become teachers, this means they've got a really strong base that they can use in their teaching, quite apart from whatever they might have learned from family or friends or in other ways. But so we do draw much more heavily on Canada and the United States, and it's some of their materials that we use. But of course then the task for us is to see, well, how do these materials apply to Australian conditions? Where are they suitable, where are they not? There are quite a lot of books and other resource material that we can use for the teaching of folklore. I mean, the publications by people of Ron Edwards and Bill Scott and John Meredith and Bill Wannon and so on. There's a lot of Australian material about, but it's not sort of teacher-oriented material, so that if you want to start really looking at the theoretical aspects of it, we've had to draw on overseas sources, and which is, to a point satisfactory and to a point a bit difficult. It is quite hard. I mean, folklore is sort of the interdisciplinary study, par excellence. It draws on anthropology and history and psychology and literature, and that's quite a tough challenge, to meaningfully say something theoretically about this. Of course, it also makes it more interesting.
Must make sense. The field of folklore is very broad and encompasses so many aspects of our daily life that we are hardly aware of it. Our folk culture makes us different, yet it also relates us nation to nation and culture to culture. It's old and it's new, and it's also threatened, not by the technology of mass communication itself, for as we have seen, technology can also be used to proliferate folklore, but by the way the technology is used. Phil Lobel, well-known singer, songwriter and recently retired music board member, put it succinctly in her opening address to the conference.
In case you don't keep up with the folk culture of watching TV, there is an ad for the America's Cup that features a boat named after one of our noisier symbols, the kookaburra. And in it we see a boat flying across splendid seas, accompanied by kookaburra chortles and flashes of that badly designed coffee percolator, the America's Cup, while a voice triumphantly carols, "The kookaburra's gonna have the last laugh." Well, if kookaburras have got to the point of having last laughs, our collective creative impulse, our sense of identity, and our capability of independent thought as a nation is on its last legs. And we won't be kookaburras but bloody jackasses if we don't find a direction to turn these last legs into a path that will take us to our own cultural realisation.